Welcome everybody to the Wheycup Modcast. All right, today we are joined by Mezz, the creator of Just Enough Items mod. So whenever you click E when you're playing a mod pack, this right here, this thing on the side, is the Just Enough Items mod, and it is absolutely crucial in my opinion, and I'm so excited to be joined by Mezz, the creator here. Thank you again so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Wake Up. Thanks for having me.
Yes, I really appreciate it. And so why don't you go ahead and just tell us about your mod and what it does to enhance Minecraft?
All right. Well, Just Enough Items is at this point is kind of ubiquitous, but it's coming from the tradition of mods like Recipe Book, Too Many Items, Not Enough Items, um, and I know I'm forgetting something, but lots and lots of things have come before where you basically want to find out how do I craft stuff, and I don't want to have to go to a wiki to find that information or ask my best friend how to put the sticks in the right order. So this kind of came out of the need for finding more information without having to go search the internet for it.
That is awesome.
And should help you with crafting, seeing what kind of items you have in the pack. You can bookmark things now, and you can basically discover what's available to you and how to put it in a crafting table or anything else.
That's awesome. So I'm gonna hop out of my chair actually right now and just kind of go over here to the pictures. I got a couple of pictures here, and I wanted to show them, and you can see it in real time here as well. But essentially, what you can do is you can just search in this bottom right. For those of you who are unfamiliar, like if we wanted some, planks, we could just search up planks, and everything with the tag of or name of planks pops up here. So I did want to ask really quickly, just off the bat, what do you do to make sure that when somebody searches for something, they can actually see the item? Do you target the name of it or like a tag? What do you necessarily do in the back end?
Yeah, there's actually all kinds of different things. So obviously the main thing is the name, the stuff you see in the tooltip when you hover over something. So if I hover over an oak log, it says oak log. That's
Hmm.
going to be the main thing to search. But there's also options for all kinds of other stuff. So actually, if you dig into the config files for JEI on your computer, there's different search modes that you can use. So you can search for tooltips, you can search for tags, you can search even by color of items.
Oh
Some of
wow.
those things are not enabled by default because it's going to take a while to index all that and figure out what color things are.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of hidden in the configs a little bit. But yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to search for things.
Wow, that is really cool. I only knew about the at symbol and then searching in the mod. I think that's pretty much the
Mm-hmm.
only one I knew about. I didn't know you could go by color and
Mm,
stuff. That is really cool. Well, we'll dive into that in just a second. But
yeah.
thank you for giving us an introduction about the mod, and hopefully you guys will understand a little bit more about mod as we go. So just so you know, that over here, I know Mez is kind of an ominous black rectangle here. This is going to be your area to build whatever you want while I ask you these questions here in the public section of this
Okay.
video. Over here is going to be my section here, and don't worry, I'm not the best builder, so you don't need to worry about I need to worry about being showed up by you, honestly. Look at you. Look at that wall. Look at that wall. So yeah, so you can go ahead and head over there and just build whatever your heart desires. And then
Okay.
we'll get into some of these questions here. Sound good?
All right. Sounds good.
Sweet. So why don't you go ahead and tell us how you originally got into, starting to play Minecraft? When was the first time you started to play?
Oh wow. First time it's actually kind of funny. I think I started playing in alpha, which
Oh
is
wow.
the browser version.
Yeah.
um, I don't know if you remember that, but I think it was 2009. Notch came out with this basically sandbox game that you could play in a Java applet in your browser for free. And yeah, all the way back then. I think that I kind of followed it for a while. I was really looking for some kind of block game, I guess. I was before that I was playing something. I think it was called Blockland or something. It was kind of rip off of Lego, where you could play
Oh,
with Legos with your friends. But I think it was not following copyright or something, so it got shut
oh,
down. And I
dang.
was looking for some other game I could play with my friends, where we could build stuff together. And um, Minecraft came up. I was also trying to get into like Dwarf Fortress at the time, but I think it was a little bit too much for me. And I wanted something that had kind of that free form, open procedural world. So this was really like just what I was looking for.
That's awesome. You know, I do know about Dwarf Fortress. My brother has played that game, introduced me to it as well, and so that's cool. Dang, okay. So what was it like in alpha Minecraft? Because I was
Um,
never around for that.
yeah, there wasn't much. I mean, it was basically like we're playing now. It's kind of creative mode in a way where you just have blocks. Um, there wasn't even crafting.
Oh no
It
way,
was just
dang.
mine.
Wow.
Uh, but it evolved pretty quickly. I think, we had like, I think it was called InfDev or something like that. And it kind of took off where they added crafting, they started adding lots of updates that people were excited about. And um, yeah, it took off from there. And I think I kind of dropped it for a little bit, but when it became like a proper like Java app game, I started playing again.
Nice. That's crazy. My sort of claim to fame was that I started playing it on the Pocket Edition. And now saying that it's a
Oh,
claim to fame is funny because I remember waiting for the what's it called? The enchanting table to come to the game because it wasn't in the game at the time when I was playing it back in the day. So
oh wow,
yeah, but playing it
nice.
in alpha, that's awesome. Dang. Well,
Yeah,
sweet.
I actually I have an old video from like I guess one of the early versions where I was playing with the Pistons mod. I don't know if you know about that, but it was like one of the mods from the early game that actually got integrated into the game later
Oh
as
wow, I
like
didn't.
a official part of the game. So before there were Pistons, someone had created a mod for it,
Oh,
and
interesting. That's pretty cool. So
yeah,
it was
way
a
back.
mod originally, and then do you know if Minecraft like Mojang bought it or if they just kind of integrated it themselves?
I think they just integrated it themselves. Like
Yeah.
they kind of put their own flavor on it. It was a little bit
Okay.
different looking. In the mod, it was just like this iron block that could push stuff with a little iron uh, sub block. It was very simple, but what Mojang came up with looks a little bit nicer. I think
Dang, that's
a
super
little bit more
cool.
polished.
Do you know of any other mods that were like first mods and then kind of were adapted into Minecraft?
That's a good question. I think maybe um, hmm, wasn't weren't horses one of those? I don't remember exactly,
Oh,
but
that's
I
interesting. I
feel like
don't
there
know
was
about
something
that.
else that was like that. Yeah.
That's cool. Dang. Well, sick. Okay, so you mentioned you started in alpha. So you also mentioned that you originally played in alpha, then kind of took a break from it a little bit, right? And then went into Java
Yeah.
when Java came out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what got you into modding then, and when did you start that?
Okay. Yeah, I think what was I doing? I think I jumped back in right around 1.6.4 and I was playing with Buildcraft mostly. Buildcraft, you could build engines and dig for oil and you can automate stuff in a way you could never really do in the vanilla game. So I was pretty drawn to that. I really wanted to play with more stronger automation kind of thing.
Okay.
So that was what really interested me. And then I think I was building, let's see, I was building a pump setup to pump some oil into some engines, and they needed cooling, if I recall.
Oh
And you had to
wow.
have water cooling. And if you didn't have enough cooling and the engine overheated, it would actually explode.
Oh jeez.
So it was pretty high stakes.
Yeah,
So
that
what I
sounds like
did
mechanism
was,
now.
yeah, I think I built everything automated and I walked away And when I came back, my base was exploded. It was a crater. And I was trying to think like what the heck happened here because I had everything perfectly set up. Um, I did a lot of digging into the game to try to figure out what had happened there, and eventually I learned that my pumps for water or whatever I was using to put the water in were in a different chunk, which is like it had unloaded that chunk first. So my
Oh.
engines were running and my water supply was unloaded. And so it didn't exist as far as the game was concerned. And I just had my base explode. So that was the second time I stopped playing for a while. um, and then eventually I got into, I wanted to give it another try after maybe one more year. And I started playing with Buildcraft and Forestry. And forestry is really where I started to get into modding as a modder. So I was playing with my bees, doing bee breeding as you do. And what I found was if I dropped the bees from the backpack in a certain way, I actually ended up duplicating my bees by accident. And I kind of
Oh.
freaked out because it's like a pretty big problem. If you can duplicate bees, you break the game pretty quickly. So I tried to reproduce it. I was able to do it every time, and I
Oh
found it was
wow.
just a bug in the mod. So I went to their GitHub to report the issue, and I think Sir Sengir was the guy who was the author of the mod. But at the time, it was being maintained by him and Covert Jaguar, who was um, the author of Railcraft. And it was they seemed like they weren't working on it that much, like they were busy with other stuff, and they were just starting to open source the mod, so they wanted to get help from other people to maintain it. So that was kind of my opportunity to think like, hey, I was like an undergrad in computer science. I know a little bit about programming. Let me see if I can just fix this bee problem that I reported myself. And eventually, with some help from, I guess maybe like some tutorials from Pahimar and some others for how to get the Java environment set up with Forge, I was eventually able to figure out how to get this thing running and how to fix the B backpack problem. And I submitted my patch, and that was the beginning of a long journey. Eventually, I ended up fixing a lot of stuff in forestry, and I became the official maintainer of it for 164 and 1710 for a few years.
Wow. Dang. So how did that look like? You mentioned you became the official maintainer of it. How did you go from submitting your patch to then them being like, "Hey, let did they formally invite you on, or was it kind of you took it upon yourself? What was that process like?"
Yeah, so in the issue tracker, you've got a bunch of known bugs, and then you can submit a pull request where it gets reviewed by the maintainer. So there's kind of a way to contribute without being, the lead of the project. You can basically have people who are not necessarily super trusted submitting stuff, and then it goes through a review process to make sure it's all good before it gets accepted. So
Okay.
by doing that, I was able to kind of prove that I was, trying to improve things and not just destroy the mod. And also, I was able to get guidance from the maintainers as they did reviews to kind of show me the way of how to do it right. So, with that help, eventually I took on a bunch of issues, I submitted a bunch of fixes, and they basically said, okay, well, kind of stepping back from working on this, do you want to just become like a direct contributor? And so by doing that, I was able to become the main maintainer of the mod.
Wow. That's cool. And what were your thoughts when they asked you about that? Was it like super awesome and you're super excited, or just kind of like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was already kind of doing that. I mean, to get the job, you basically have to have been doing the job ahead of time.
Right.
So it's a natural transition. It's not like a sudden change, but it
Hmm.
definitely was nice to be like, okay, finally I'm in uh, a trusted like status. I've made it. I finally understand what I'm doing well enough that they don't have to like pick apart every time I do something and say, you're you're kind of doing something stupid here, Mez. Maybe you should fix this. It was more like, oh no, you're doing a good job. We trust you to take this on. So there was definitely a point of pride in that I was able to get to that level. But as far as like it wasn't a surprise either because it was built into the process. It was like this is just how it works. So
Right. Build more of that trust. Okay. That's awesome.
exactly.
Dang. Well, that's really cool. And so from that
Yes.
point, you mentioned that's kind of how you originally got into modding. How did you get
Hmm.
into making JEI? I know you mentioned before some things about it. How did you get into, and what was the inspiration behind getting into JEI, making that mod?
Yeah. So at the time maintaining forestry, I was, let's see, that was 1.7.10. So the main recipe viewing mod at the time was NEI, not enough items. And that was absolutely the go to, like, no question. That's the one you use. And it was actually a bit difficult to write plugins for it. So there were some dedicated people. I think maybe, sorry, it's hard to remember everyone's names from so long ago. It's been more than 10 years, but I think there was a modder named Tonius who was making the forestry add on and some other add ons for NEI so you could view the recipes for these mods. Um, but it was really specialized knowledge. Like you really had to know what you're doing to make it performant, and it was pretty tricky. So there was only a handful of people in the community who were like the NEI whisperers who could put that stuff together. So I really wanted to build that right into forestry itself, so it didn't need to have a separate mod. And I was getting really frustrated trying to make it work. It was actually very challenging, or there was some weird stuff about it. And I thought to myself, like, okay, I've been doing so much stuff with recipes and forestry. Like, I think I can improve on this. And so I just decided I was going to try to um, like fork NEI and try to improve on it. It turned out that that was really hard. So I ended up actually just starting over and rewriting it from scratch. And that was JEI. And it didn't really take off in 1.7.10. Everyone already had their plugins and things for NEI, so there was no reason to like get everyone to rewrite all their code just to work with this new mod. There was absolutely no reason to either. It basically looked exactly the same as NEI with less features. But in the next version, 1.8 and higher, I got some traction by helping people uh, port their code to use JEI, and they saw that it was a lot like easier, a little bit more clear.
Uh-huh.
And also, NEI was no longer being maintained very actively. I think at that time, Chicken Bones didn't have a ton of time to work on it. So it just happened to be good timing where I had already kind of built something, it was ready to go, and people were willing to try it out. And yeah, I guess the rest is history.
Wow. That's crazy. So you mentioned that it was tough to make, plugins and add-ons for NEI, right?
Hmm.
So for
Yeah,
JEI,
there
for just
was
enough items. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
there was some tricky stuff about it. Like the API wasn't fully separated from the code of the mod, and it also had like core mods in it that modified the game directly. So when you
Oh.
tried to put it in your developer environment, it was actually like one of the hardest mods to use in a developer environment at the time because the tooling for that type of thing was pretty poor.
Hmm.
So one of the things I did with JEI was actually remove a lot of the cool features and just keep it really simple so that when you were using it in your developer environment, it would just work more easily.
Hmm.
So NEI had all kinds of stuff in it. Like I think people don't really remember, but there was stuff like a button you could push to see the light level on the ground, so you could see if there was shadows on the ground, and if you had to light up stuff so that mobs would not spawn there. You also had things like it changed the way you could move items in your inventory. Like you could use the scroll wheel to move items around. It
Wow.
also even had stuff like the heads-up display that shows you which blocks you're looking at and things like that. Like it had a ton of features, which is really cool. But at the same time, it made it tougher to maintain and port, and it also made it tougher to work with in the developer environment. So for JEI, I just decided I was going to keep this thing as simple as possible, so that it's just going to do one thing and hopefully do it as well as it can, so that it can get ported more easily and uh, make sure that it's easier to maintain too.
That's awesome. So part of the reason I asked that was because I'm creating my own mod right now, actually, and
Oh,
part
nice.
of part of the like one of the steps is to integrate it with your mod, integrate it with JEI, right? And it's
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
too crazy complicated. And because you
Mm.
mentioned it being sort of complicated with, with not enough items, and it's interesting to hear the reasons why. And I just wanted to ask, so how do you make your mod available to be so easy to work with, if that makes sense? You mentioned making it simple, but are there any other things that you have to do as a creator to ensure that other mods can link up easy with your mod?
Yeah, there's a lot to do, especially. Um, I mean, a lot of it has to do with API design. This is stuff I got help from other people, but also I gained a lot of knowledge from working on forestry, because there's actually a lot of forestry add-ons and there's a lot of features in forestry with the bees and that kind of thing. So the idea is, you want to build it in such a way that people can integrate with it simply, and there's a lot of techniques in Java to do that. Um, One of the biggest requirements in JEI when updating and doing that kind of thing is to make sure that I don't break the API like very often. If I make changes in the API that change like the code signature of a method somewhere, it's going to break every mod who was calling the old version. So one of the most important things I can do to maintain ease and compatibility is make sure that every time I make a change, it's like adding on like a new method, but not changing old ones. And that is sometimes like playing a giant chess game across years, where you have to keep in mind all the different changes you want to make and how you can do it in a way that doesn't um, break anyone. It's very tricky, but a lot of that is made easier by the limited scope of JEI. So
Mm-hmm.
because I decided it shouldn't have all these extra features, it's a little bit um, it's a little bit easier to take on the challenge of having a stable API.
Wow, that's
So some
awesome.
of the API design stuff, like um, the mod discovery and the way that the mod loading is working, that's coming from talks I had with like CPW, who was one of the main maintainers of Forge at the time. And he's a Java expert to say the least, and he basically had a lot of opinions about the way to build things. And if you look at how mods are loaded, it's pretty similar to how JEI loads its API as well. It uses basically the same system. So by reusing that, I was able to get a lot of benefit and compatibility. So for the way it's designed, basically means if JEI is present, it's going to load your code and then it's all going to work. And if JEI is not there, then your code just never gets called at all. And I think that's pretty different from how a lot of other mod integrations go, where you can't have an optional dependency. It just always has to be there, or else it's going to break. Like if the code doesn't have, uh, the thing it's integrating with, it can be pretty tricky to make it run properly. So there's all kinds of like little tricky. I don't know how detailed I want to get into the code, but there's a lot of tricky stuff like that that I have to keep in mind when updating in order to make sure nothing breaks and everything works out. But I think by starting with this kind of more complicated but more solid design, it's paid off over time by making things just easier to work with and easier to update.
Sure. Okay. Wow.
Sorry, I hope that answered your question. I
Oh
got
yeah,
kind of off track
absolutely.
there.
No. That's great. I just love to. I'm trying myself too to just kind of learn how to pause and stuff that way too. So in case you think of something, then you can jump right in again. So, but yeah,
Cool.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool to hear because I always wondered as well. You talked about updating, but I also wondered how hard it is to I think it's called porting it to like a different mod loader. Is that right? Is that the
Hmm.
right terminology there?
Yeah.
So
That
yeah.
was extremely tough. So I try to support everything with JEI, which is foolish, but let's see. I got some help from Jared and Dark Hacks, who made a multi-loader setup. And this is basically a way to conditionally load some code based on the loader you're using. So, for example, if I'm using Fabric, it's going to start from Fabric entry point. It's going to call some specific to Fabric API methods, and it's going to have a few specific to Fabric things. But it's not like the whole mod had to be copy pasted. Like a lot of the code is reusable because it's generic. Like it doesn't care which mod loader is is currently being used. But there are certain things like let me think. Let's say I have a block and I want to get its tooltip. You would think that would be pretty straightforward and the same for every mod, but it's not. Basically, different mod loaders add little extras in order to enhance it and to get extra functionality. So if you want to support that extra functionality, you have to add special code for each mod loader. So the way you can do that in JEI without rewriting the whole thing is basically just writing a generic method called get tooltip, and then you plug in a different implementation based on the current mod loader. So if, for example, NeoForge is loaded, it's going to use the NeoForge tooltip. And if Fabric is loaded, it's going to use the Fabric one. And if something's broken, it's just going to fall back to like the Minecraft regular version. So by doing that, by finding the specific places where you have this enhanced functionality, you can basically support different mod loaders without having to rewrite the entire thing. That said, it's not particularly easy, especially in the developer environment. Having all this stuff loaded can slow things down if there's like problems with Gradle, for example. One of the things I struggled with for a long time, Gradle is the main like build tool you use for Minecraft, and a lot of people they just want to get it working, but they don't want to have to spend the time to make it work perfectly. So there's a lot of pretty hacky stuff that goes on there. And I think only recently, like in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, we've gotten some people who have taken a really serious look at Gradle uh, from the Fabric team and from the NeoForge team, and now Forge catching up as well to try to make sure that that stuff is really locked down and working properly. So things have been improving, but in the early days of multi-loading multiple mods, it was pretty rough to get your IDE just to work because it's just constantly fighting 3 different Gradle setups for every mod loader, all trying to work together at the same time with weird errors and stuff that doesn't like it.
Wow. Dang. Okay.
So
So
the JEI project is often used as like a stress test for people doing Gradle like tooling now because it's just such a nightmarish, messed up, difficult project. So uh, anytime someone's going to work on a Gradle project that can support well anything in Minecraft, I kind of ask them like, hey, can you check JEI and see if this works at all, because there's a decent chance it's going to be running into some crazy edge case you've never thought of before.
wow. Dang. That is crazy. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that, honestly, some of that even just flew over my head, and I'm just like, like what was
Sorry.
one of the things. Oh, no worries at all. No worries at all. I'm just for our audience too. I didn't personally know that. I mean, there's a team working on Forge and NeoForge, like the actual just Forge and NeoForge themselves. I mean, it makes sense. I just had never
Mhm.
thought about it. So what do they?
Yeah, and
Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
I guess my question generally was just like, I guess realistically, are they just taking new versions of Minecraft and then implementing, the mod loaders of Forge so that people can keep their mods, going with that new version of Minecraft? Is that essentially what they're doing there?
Kind of. I mean, let's go back to like what is the mod loader for, right? So back in the early days, you had jar mods, which was basically just code that was replacing Java code. You would open up the Minecraft jar and you would paste in some files that overrode what was there, and then that was a mod. Like it was basically you're literally modifying the files in Minecraft manually,
Wow.
and it worked, right? You could change things that way. But the problem was if you had two mods and they both want to edit the same file, they had no way of doing it together. You basically had pasted a file in, and now I want two mods that want to edit the same file. How do I make that work? You just can't,
Mm,
right? So what they ended up doing, these mods kind of got together and said, okay, well, let's make a shared mod. We both want to edit this file. So like let's make a section that we can both mess with and work together. And that's kind of where one of the main functionalities of the mod loader is having a way to have multiple mods work together in the game so that you're not just stepping on each other. So one of the modern examples of stepping on each other, you can just write some like mix-ins or other things are also compatible. But it used to be you just wrote some code that would directly edit the game file. Um, but the more compatible way is to basically get something into one of these mod loaders. So let me give a more concrete example because it's a bit easier to understand. I wanted to make sure if you look at the JEI screen and you hover over something on the right side, you see a tooltip. And that tooltip is going off to the left. It's not going off the screen. Normally in a Minecraft GUI, like when you look in the middle section at the creative menu,
mm,
that tooltip is going off to the right side.
mm.
But for JEI, because it's all the way on the edge, you can't go off to the right side or else you're not going to see it.
Oh.
So I had an option. I could go and I could fix this in JEI, or I could think and say, okay, well, if I fix it in JEI and someone else adds a bunch of stuff to the tooltip, it's going to be missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like my mod's doing one thing, another mod's trying to edit it and does it a different way. So what I had to do was go into Forge and submit a patch there. So I submitted a patch to Forge that allows tooltips to do wrapping, to go to the correct side, to make sure that they can be displayed. And by doing it there, everyone kind of has access and they can also add on to it there. And that's just a better place for that type of change. So that's one example of like how the mod loaders offer that type of functionality. So as a maintainer, you basically have all these requests for these weird features, and you have to make a judgment call and say, does this belong here? Is this maintainable? Is this well written? Is this like correctly done? And do we want to accept it as part of the community? So there's a lot of like decision making, politics, and other kind of stuff that go on at that level.
Wow. So it's you've got people like you were in the past who are maintainers of these, Forge and other things that do things
Mhm.
like add features so that everyone can use them to benefit from things together instead of having to natively do it inside their own mods each and every single time. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And it also helps because when you have stuff that's like a shared resource like tooltips, you need a place where people can work on it together without stepping on each other. Because if you just have everyone doing different stuff, it's incompatible, and you're going to have one change overriding another, so that you only see one of the two changes. Or if you have five people changing tooltips, which you often do, I mean, imagine stuff like you're adding a hunger bar to the tooltip, you're adding the mod name to the tooltip, you're making sure the tooltip scrolls off the screen correctly so that it's not like you get what I'm saying, right? There's so
Hmm.
many changes altogether, and they're very typical changes you see in a mod pack. But if you did it in a single mod, it just wouldn't work out. So we need a shared place.
Wow. That just shows me how much there is to think about. I didn't even think about how the fact I didn't even notice it. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah,
Just how sometimes it's on the right if it fits, but if not, then it just goes over. And the fact that
yeah.
that
I
has
think
to go through Forge is crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think that this type of thing is one of the things that differentiates Minecraft modding so much from other community modding. Very often you see stuff like Skyrim modding. It's more like the earlier days of Minecraft where people were just kind of doing things independently.
Hmm.
And the way that Minecraft mods are able to integrate so deeply with each other and have these type of things is uh, one of the main reasons, I think, is because of the mod loaders
Wow.
and the way that they've been maintained.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely vital. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Would you ever consider being a in the mod loading community for anything like that?
Um, yeah, I mean, I used to help with Forge. I was doing like pull request reviews for a while, and I mean, eventually I helped get some other people to join in and help out more with that, and I kind of stepped back because I didn't have as much time as I did before.
Hmm.
But I still do contribute occasional patches to NeoForge and Fabric, um, and try to help out there. I think recently, for example, Minecraft stopped sending, or they stopped including the recipe data on the clients. It's only on the server now for the very
Oh.
latest versions. And in order for recipe mods like JEI to work, you need to have access to the recipe data on the client, right?
Hmm.
So I could have solved this in JEI separately, but it occurred to me and a lot of people that there's need for this recipe data for more mods than just JEI. So I made a request um, to the teams maintaining Fabric and NeoForge and Forge to add a way to sync those recipes to the client so that it was done in a way that everyone could use. And yeah, they were able to implement that. So now the functionality still works, and I didn't have to write a whole system just for JEI.
Wow. Dang. I also
Yeah,
wanted to
people are
ask, there's
generally pretty
like,
helpful.
oh yeah, go ahead. What was that?
People are generally pretty helpful.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's crazy. That's so cool. And correct me if I'm wrong, but these type of people that are doing this aren't really getting paid anything, right?
No, it's just community stuff.
That's
So
so awesome.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the modding stuff is like that. For
Mm.
example, like even with JEI, people, uh, I think I have a Patreon that makes like $3 a month or something. Like this is not uh, this is not what I do for work. I can be. I'm a professional software developer. I don't really need uh, Minecraft modding as like my only job. So for me, it's more why did I make GEI? Is because I was trying to have fun building forestry, and I was having some frustrations, and I think other people shared my frustration. So I wanted to fix that. I wanted to try to help the community by building something that I think I knew how to do and I could improve on. And I think there's a lot of goodwill that goes around that way where because I worked on something like this, other people who do similar things recognize it and they'll help me with stuff too. So we're all kind of like helping each other out, and I think that type of community is what makes this a lot of fun. It makes things a lot easier too, when you don't just have to be completely independent trying to figure out how everything goes together.
Yeah. Dang. I imagine there's a lot of respect between the community members too.
Yeah, I think so. And
That's
I mean, a lot of people come and go too. So there's not that many people who've been working on the mods like as long as I have. I think JEI is more than 10 years old now. But definitely there's some very dedicated people working behind the scenes, and new people come in all the time and bring in new ideas and learn new stuff. So it's a good community. It's a lot of fun.
wow, that's super
It's a
cool.
very good hobby, I think.
Yeah. Dang. So, speaking of that, like, how long do you personally have to spend maintaining and updating JEI?
Um, it's a bit tough to say. So usually I don't have a lot to do because I limited the scope. So it doesn't have a ton of features touching a ton of stuff. One of the things that was tough with forestry is it had world generation, it had villagers, it had things that interact with fluids, it had custom rendering, particle effects, almost every system in Minecraft. It had some hands touching that. And in JEI, it's mostly just dealing with items and recipes. So it's a little bit easier to update. And that's done intentionally because a lot of people do depend on it updating quickly. Whenever I lag on updates because, whatever's going on in my life means I can't get to it right away, people are constantly hounding me like, hey, I can't update my mod until JEI is done. When are you going to be finished? And things like that. So it's important to make sure that what I have built is like pretty quick to update. So in general, I think it doesn't take me very long. I do spend probably a few hours a week, like fixing bugs and tweaking stuff and adding features. But it's not like a huge feature mod like a lot of the stuff you think about in Minecraft. It's more of like a library that happens to be very very used. So most of the bugs and things have been kind of worked out over the years. I built it in such a conservative and cautious way that there isn't a lot of new stuff that comes up unless like Mojang makes huge changes to recipes like they've been doing.
Yeah. Man, dang. Okay. So, does that ever get annoying when people are, hounding you for these changes?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I recently made a post on Reddit and on GitHub where I collected every single time someone has asked me to update the mod, just to make a point, because I think a lot of people don't really understand just how many people ask. But
Uh-huh.
so I linked to hundreds of GitHub posts and CurseForge comments and Discord DMs and even people like trying to find me on Twitter and like replying to stuff I had posted a long time ago, like, "Hey, have you updated JEI? Can you make it for this obscure version on Fabric?" And like, it's endless. Like, it's really really endless. But
Dang.
I mean, I'm relatively immune to it because it's just so constant. But at the same time, I just think people should understand that they're like being pretty annoying when they ask for that kind of thing. So I just collected everything together to make something funny because I think it's a bit shocking for people to see that the actual scale of like what this looks like when you have 1,000 people asking you for something.
That is crazy. Oh my goodness. So when I reached out to you in CurseForge, was it like sort of just by chance that you were able to see it, or is it not like insane?
Oh, I still check because there's occasional like useful stuff that comes through there, but the vast majority of what's on CurseForge is just people asking me for like obscure version updates, like by far. So
Man, dang, that's crazy. Wow. Well, what would you say is the in the mod itself? What's the aspect or the thing about your mod that you're just most proud of? Would you say?
Um, I think I'm pretty happy with the search indexing I did. So one of the things that was a bit lacking in NEI was that it didn't build any kind of like smart data structure to search for items because it didn't really need to. Like at the time, the scale of packs wasn't so big that it mattered. You could search by basically typing some text, and then NEI would just scan over every item and it would ask it, hey, what's your name? What's your tooltip? And then it would check if it matched. And I mean, that was good enough, right? It worked
Hmm.
just fine. But when you get into stuff like super huge packs, like now you have packs with 300 plus mods, it was actually going to be very slow. So one of the things I did, because I have absolutely no one telling me what I need to do, and I just wanted to nerd out. I wanted to make a very, very optimized um, search feature. So I went and I looked for some like academic paper of how to do these search trees and found a nice Java implementation I was able to adapt in order to basically efficiently index and search for every item in the game without having to um, do a lot of computation. So you're able to find things very quickly, even in a large pack, which I think you don't really have to think about. You type something, and in less than 10 milliseconds, you have the items showing up. So it's pretty much instantaneous in most cases. You can't really even perceive the lag. Um, but before that, you would sometimes have seconds passing where you were just waiting for a result. So I think it was a big improvement. But because it was so technical, I think it's one of the ones I'm more proud of because uh, I think it's an interesting tech achievement in the mod that is kind of overkill and unnecessary, but it's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, whenever I'm using JAI, I don't even think about how hard it is for it to be like super quick. It just pops up, you know? And so that's really interesting to hear just, the back end of it and that it's a proud thing that you accomplished. I think that's super sick. That's awesome.
No,
Dang.
thanks.
Well, how long did it take you to get your first working version of JEI when you first started it to when you first released it? You mentioned it got released in 1.1.9, you said, or 1.10?
Uh, so I was working on it on 1.7.10, and
Oh,
the
1.7.
first one I actually released was 1.8
Oh.
because I realized like no one was gonna use it because NEI was like very dominant, and there was no way people were gonna rewrite their plugins just for this new mod that no one's heard of. So I had started on 1.8, and also it was kind of an important version because people needed it. They didn't have an alternative at the time, so I was able to release it pretty quickly and start getting people onboarded right away.
Wow.
I think as far as like getting it the first version started, I already had it working on 1.7.10, and I had been kind of working on it secretly, basically in the background for a while. I mean,
Mhm.
there were some people who knew about it. I was asking them for feedback and things like that for what they wanted in it and what they wanted to see improved. But regular players weren't didn't have access to it. So I think maybe about a year, I would say, before from start to finish, something like that.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, because the mod I'm making now is pretty simple. You're just kind of, adding items in, adding an armor set, making an effect or two, putting in some,
Mm.
entities and that kind of thing. But bosses and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd always wondered how long it would take, especially because you also mentioned that you do coding for your job. You got an undergrad, you said, in computer science. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and so I imagine you learned at least one coding language. Did you learn multiple coding languages throughout your time there?
Yeah, I learned a few different languages. I learned like C, C++, Lisp, a little bit of Java, some Python. Um, I mean, these are all things where there's a lot of like similarities, but I think with Java, the first time I was really getting seriously into it was with Minecraft modding.
Mm, yeah. So Java was kind of like, how hard was it for you to go from what you had learned in school to Minecraft, or was it kind of at the same time, or even before you started learning some languages? What does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it's kind of at the same time. So I mean, one of the hard things wasn't even so much about the language. Like because what I understood was like, okay, I know how to reverse lists. I know how to do stuff with algorithms. I learned all the computer science stuff, but actual practical, like hands-on things, I was much weaker. So, for example, with forestry, um, I didn't really have at first a very strong concept of what goes on the client and what goes on the server. So I was mixing up stuff. And I think the code originally had been written where Minecraft had shared code between client and server. So the code itself was also a bit confused, and I was confused as well. And there was stuff like a mail system. So you could send mail to other players in forestry, and they would have a little mailbox to receive it. But if you write the delivery code on the client and you connect to a multiplayer server and you send some mail, it doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It doesn't even make sense. But I didn't really understand what was going on in the code. So I think that was one of the harder things I had to really understand was just what is the logical separation here and how does all this stuff go together. And I mean, this is really basic stuff, but getting my hands dirty with a real project was the first time I had to actually like understand this at a deep level and implement it correctly.
Wow. Was there ever a time where you were making your mod where and you thought, "What am I doing? This is never going to work. I should just scrap this." And I just don't have the knowledge to finish it. Do you ever have moments like
Mm,
that?
yeah, I think so. I was trying to make and the forestry work table is an item where you can basically it's to help you with crafting. So you put a bunch of stuff in it, like it has a little inventory, and then you can do like fast crafting with it. And this was before any other kind of like quick crafting. And one of the things it could do as a special feature was you could deduplicate like or differentiate between recipes that had been, how do I say this? So you can actually have two recipes, the same inputs with different outputs because of some error like a mod made. So imagine I decided to register um, instead of making a chest with 4 planks, I said that that's how you make my mod's book, like the book to learn the mod. So now in the game, you have two recipes with the same inputs. You have the wooden chest and you have a book. Usually the game will just pick one and that one wins. What I wanted to do with the work table was to allow it to choose. You could decide which of these ones do you want to use. So just in case there was some recipe that had been bugged, you could still craft it. And as I was trying to figure out how to do this stuff with auto crafting and all these other complex features in the game, I was really struggling, especially when it came to getting this to work with the server code as well. And I came very close to giving up. But actually, the things that I learned from doing that are what enabled me to write JEI because I had learned so much about recipes and all the horrible variations of item stacks and all the weird details that after doing that, I just I knew everything I needed in order to do a recipe mod.
Wow. So would you say that while you were making JEI, you felt pretty confident and maybe even thought back to the experience you just shared and were kind of rejuvenated in those moments of
Yeah,
self-doubt?
I think I didn't want to take on something like JEI without feeling like I knew what I was doing ahead. So I think in that case, I would have never been able to do it as my first mod, but I had enough experience and I had done so much um, with modding already at that point that I felt like, okay, this is a challenge I can take on. I know how to do it. It's just a matter of like designing an API that's going to stand the test of time without needing too much maintenance. And that's where a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears went into. But as far as like actually making it work, I was pretty sure I knew what to do. So I felt like I wasn't too worried about that part.
That's awesome. What would you say to someone who is thinking about making their own mod?
Go for it. It's great. It's a great way to learn programming better, especially if you have like, some experience from school or something like that, but you want to get your hands dirty actually making something. I think it's very motivational too because you actually get to see some results. It's not just theoretical. It's not just reversing a linked list. You're actually able to put stuff in the world or create new things or whatever you put your imagination to. I mean, even if you just want to do something silly and like make like a lawn mowing simulator in Minecraft, like you totally can, and there's no one to stop you. Like there's it's only limited by like yourself. If you think your idea is too stupid because you think people aren't going to like it, you're just kind of limiting yourself.
Hmm.
But that's the only limit. If you can push past that and just build whatever, I mean, I spent how much time just like making bee particles do the right thing so that they would go from the beehive to the flowers and back. Like, I probably spent like 100 hours just making the bee particles do exactly what I wanted to, and it wasn't because it was a homework assignment. It was just because I was having fun, and I think I learned how to be a better programmer from doing it. So I would definitely recommend people, if you're interested, just try stuff out, do some silly, stupid stuff, and if it sucks, I don't know, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. I love that. That's awesome. So what would you say? You mentioned you had a lot of interactions with with people from the modding community, and you've had some mentors, some people help you out, some people work on JAI with you. What would you say has been the like maybe best piece of either advice someone's given you or something that somebody said that made an impact on you?
Hmm. Kind of hard to remember actually. Trying to think. I think a lot of it came more from observing other people's behavior rather than their words in particular. I
Mm,
think a lot of the interactions I've had with the community are done through code and code review, honestly.
okay.
So there's a lot of cases where, um, just getting started, I just wanted to get something done. And one of the things I've been talking about earlier was like the collaboration aspect. Like, why do we use this mod loader? Why do we bother with the extra code review and getting it through this committee of people who have some idea of how it's supposed to look? Or why not just implement it directly? And I think just by watching what happens when you don't do that and uh, kind of getting a better understanding of why things have been built up the way they are, I think that was very helpful. And of course, there's people who will tell you like you should do it this way, but I think better than that is just actually seeing for yourself like why they do it this way and what kind of results they're getting. I think that speaks louder than the advice. You can see like the very successful, long-standing content mods and that kind of thing are doing a lot of things the right way. They're contributing. They're getting help from other people. Um, they're trying to, I guess, be good members of the community, and I think that serves as a good example.
That's awesome. That's cool. Who would you say right now are you closest with in the modding community?
I've been pretty tuned out, I think, because I'm just like on maintenance mode. I'm not doing a ton of like direct contact with people,
Mhm.
but um, I still get help from people with like hosting and other things like that for like the build server. I get help from Jared and Dark Hacks. There's other people who have contributed a lot to JEI in the past, like Pup Noobster. And I think, let me think. Um, there's also someone who's been contributing a lot to JEI recently, who's called VFYJXF. I don't know how to pronounce this, but he's been very helpful in trying to implement new features, like especially things around extra functionality like quick crafting, the lookup history, some other stuff like showing how things are crafted in tooltips. There's like some nice extra features that have been coming in later versions that he's been helping out with, and I've been doing code review to try to get things polished. So we're working as a team on that kind of thing a bit.
That's awesome.
But there's really a very, very, very long list if I want to start going back in time. But I think that might be a little exhausting. So hopefully I'll just I'll leave it short for now. Sorry for leaving people out.
Yeah, well, that's really cool. I think being part of community is very strong and very cool. So I'm grateful that for all the contributions you've made. Now, specifically about Minecraft, how often do you actually play the game for fun?
I rarely play nowadays. Like to be honest, I just don't play much at all.
Hmm.
Um, I just don't have much time to play. So most of the time where I'm doing things in Minecraft, it's with uh, bugs in JEI or new features or things like that. So while I do load up the game, I'm not like doing a concentrated effort to go and conquer the Nether and you know all this kind of thing. So for me, it's more of a um, it's a project at this point.
Yeah. Dang. Okay, cool. And I assume kind of by extension then, you don't typically watch a whole bunch of YouTubers that play Minecraft or anything like that, or do you watch a lot of YouTubers?
I don't watch anymore. I used to watch a lot, especially when I was first making the mod,
Hmm.
JEI and forestry in particular. So there's some YouTubers who I followed for a long time because I liked to see like how they used the mod, and I was trying to figure out ways to like improve because a lot of people they don't give feedback or people don't really know who make the mods. So I found one of the ways to get the best feedback is actually just to watch people try and sometimes struggle to use the mod. And um, so, for example, when JEI was just starting, there were a few people who are always on like the latest, mod pack and trying out the latest stuff, and they're power
Hmm.
users. And these are the type of people I wanted to make sure they were not struggling with the mod. Because in my opinion, if one of these guys has problems with the mod, that means the mod is the problem. Like, so I think I was watching. Let's see. I was watching like Hypno. He was a very strong power user of NEI. to the point where he was writing like complex, almost scripts in his search box in order to select certain lists of items in combination with other lists of items, like stuff that no one else even knew was in there. So
Wow.
I figured, like, okay, this guy probably is a good stress test. So I would check out what he was doing with JEI, and very often he would run into stuff where he's just like, "What is this thing doing? Like, I don't know what's going on right now." And for me, it was a good chance to look at it and say, okay, how can I improve this so that he doesn't run into that problem? And so I would watch people like him and Direwolf20, who are, smart guys struggling with the mod or running into stuff that just looked messed up. And I would fix it. And then I would check in like a couple weeks later, and sure enough, they had updated the mod. And I don't think they really noticed that I made a change, but they didn't run into the same problem ever again. So I think that was a success.
That's awesome. Yeah, going finding people that seem like great stress testers and then seeing how they break it and being humble enough to accept, hey, that might be because of my mod, so let's see what we can do to fix it. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely always be humble. I think if you're trying to uh, come into this community with the thought that like your thing is the best, you will eventually be humbled if you're not already. Like I've seen it so many times over the years where someone is like a little too cocky or a little too like, yeah, you guys are all stupid. I'm gonna do something no one's ever seen before, and then like 10 months later, they're like, man, that was really hard. You guys were right. Like, I'm gonna chill out a little bit, but at least I did it with everyone's help, and it's like, okay, cool, it worked out. But yeah, in the beginning, maybe being cocky is good because it gives people like that extra motivation to get started. But
Mm,
in the end, this stuff is tough, and it'll break you if you're a little bit too headstrong. So just especially if you want to improve stuff and polish things, just be very open to the idea that like your first idea is not perfect and there's going to be some issues. So just don't worry about that. It's fine.
nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So walking through the mod just a little bit, um, what are some features that some people are not aware of with your mod?
Well, I guess color search is one. If you go into the config options, you can enable a search by color. So if I want to do building with blue blocks, I can search and it'll actually index all the blocks based on their most common colors. And then you can search to get kind of a nice palette if you're looking for something in particular. That's pretty useful.
That's
In
extremely
later
useful.
versions, there's also like a lookup history. So if I look up recipes, um, you can see what you've looked up recently, and that shows up at the bottom. And
Oh wow.
then, well, I guess most people know
Oh
about
yeah.
bookmarks, but bookmarks are pretty helpful. One of the features that's come in recently, I think probably in this version, if I just grab a crafting table, let me check. But I should be able to do quick crafting from the bookmarks. Maybe I need to set up a hotkey, or actually, I think it's in a later version. But anyway, there's some little features like that.
Wow.
What else is there? There's not a ton of hidden features. I think I try to make stuff as discoverable as possible, but some of the extra search options are pretty hidden away. And there's even some options like you can draw a background behind the item list. I'm using that uh, on my game here on my recording, but I kind of like the way it looks where you have a background behind the items. I know for a lot of people, if I just make a change like that, they're gonna like not be happy that there's a huge change. So I just made it a config option. But usually when stuff's a config option, people kind of leave it as the default. So you tend not to see that kind of thing very often.
Yeah. Dang. So if you can just basically kind of trying to explain how do you make it so you can search by color? Because there's no like tags for color, are there?
No, so what it does, the reason it's off by default is it takes a little bit of time during the loading phase. And it goes and it grabs the icons for every single item in the game. And for each icon, it basically does like a little tournament to determine what are the top colors. So it tries to group them into like 2 or 3 colors. So, for example, like a glowstone block, if you look at it, it's got kind of some brown, some white, some yellow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to try to break that down into just a few similar colors, taking local averages to do some math and reduce it. And then I wrote a list of color names that are close. So it'll try to find the closest color name and it'll use that for the search. So if it finds some hexadecimal value for yellow in glowstone, it's going to go look that up and it's going to see that, okay, in English it's called yellow, and then that'll be what's indexed. And if you type yellow, it'll show up.
Wow. Dang.
So let
That's
me,
really cool.
yeah, I'm
That's super
going
cool.
to quickly enable it in my game so I can mess with it actually. We have to restart my thing. Yeah, there's a lot of config options and stuff hidden away. I think people, if they take a look into the JEI client ini file, they'll find all kinds of interesting stuff.
Yeah. How often do you think that is? Because you mentioned it can be quite common, but how often are like somewhat core-ish features kind of hidden inside the, not necessarily hidden, but in the config that you can activate?
Quite a few. So the different searching methods, let me just read down the list here. There's mod name, which you know about. There's tag search mode. There's tooltip search mode. There's color. You can also search by resource location, which is like an internal name for the item. There's
Mm-hmm.
the creative tab. So you can search by which creative tab it's in. You can also choose to search by advanced tooltips if you like. You can search by mod IDs. You can search by mod aliases, which is something mods can add through the API. So, for example, Tinker's construct, maybe they want you to be able to search TC and then you can find their stuff. So they could add a mod alias.
Oh,
You
okay.
can also search by ingredient aliases. So mods can also register in the API different names for their items if they like. So, for example, the crescent hammer could also have an alias for wrench because it's used like a wrench, for example. So
Huh.
that's one way you could use it.
Wow. Dang, that's pretty sick.
Cool. I've just turned on color search so now I can do my building a little easier.
Nice. That's pretty cool. Wow. So for someone who would like to turn that on,
Mm-hmm.
I go here to the bottom right in JI config, right? And then you
Yeah,
can click here to open the config folder, right?
that's right.
Okay.
And
And then,
you can find JEIA client.ini in there.
okay.
And then in that file, you're going to search for color search mode.
Color search mode. Found it.
And then there's a few options you can choose. You can either enable it, which means you can just type blue and it'll find it, or you can say require a prefix. For this one, the prefix is a up caret. So you would do like up caret blue and it would search, or it can
Okay.
be disabled. So usually it's disabled. Once you set this to enabled and save the file, JEI will automatically reload, so you don't have to reload the game. It'll just
Wow.
do it in the background.
No way, dude. That's so cool.
So there's a lot of little features like that, like okay, automatic config reloading. I think most people don't know or think about it. I mean, how many people edit the config at all? But it's just yeah, something like that takes a long time to implement, but turns out to be pretty cool when it finally gets working.
Yeah, that is awesome. Nice. Yep, that works. That's so
Oh,
cool.
cool.
Dang.
Nice.
Wow. That's really cool. And how many colors do you have integrated in there? Is it like not too obscure with like cyan and stuff like that, I
Yeah,
assume?
this it's relatively, I don't know. This is like a random stuff. If you look in the config folder, there's a file called um, what did I call it? I think it's called JEI colors, and you can actually write your own colors. It's
Oh,
right. It's
wow.
right next to the JEI client file,
Oh, yeah, I
so you
did
can
see
see
that.
a
Yeah.
list of colors with hex values, and those are all the colors. Also, when you turn on the color search mode, it shows you the color names on the tooltip for the item when you look at it in JEI.
Oh, yeah. That's so cool. So colors silver, brown, blue. That is so nice. Dang. How long did that take you to implement, do you think?
A very long time.
Yeah, I imagine. Holy cow. Dang, that is a
But
really
yeah,
cool feature.
oh, I just set my house on fire.
What? Oh. I thought you meant your real world house. I was like, no.
My Minecraft house.
All right. So if you had to give just initial starting advice to somebody, like how they would start making a mod, where would you send them so they could start learning? Somebody who doesn't have any knowledge of any code or anything like that, where would you send them?
Um, well, I can try to look at what I did, which is I really started with a mod that was already complete, right? So
Hmm.
when I got started, I was looking at forestry, and I think that really helped me understand a bit better what was going on because here was a mod that already works. It had a lot of like strange opinions about how the files were laid out and how things connected together, and that was interesting to learn. But the end result is always like whatever I'm doing is starting from a working starting point. So it's a
Hmm.
lot easier um, to get going and try out ideas when you already have something working. So for me, I think that's pretty important. A lot of mods are open source, and a lot of mods have little random bugs. And so see if someone's willing to take some contributions, or even if you just want to make something privately and mess around, like go and grab the code, get it running, ask them for help if you need help to get it running. And that's going to be an easier way to get started than just starting from scratch, I think. And once you got some comfort with that, um, well, then you can think about making your own mods a little easier, I think. And
Hmm.
that's the route I took. And I think it was pretty positive because especially when I learned enough about forestry that I started forming my own opinions, like, oh, I don't think they should have done it this way and that kind of thing. That's where I'm thinking like, oh, well, let me just make my own. And that's a little more motivating as well because I'm not just thinking about what I want to make, but I'm also thinking about some of the details of how I want to make it. And I think that really helps with staying focused on what I want to do,
That's
if that makes
awesome.
sense.
Oh yeah, that does. That's perfect. Yeah, I think that's great advice. Just looking at an existing mod and just being like, hey, what's the structure? What's going on in this, and just going from there. Seeing what kind of mess around with it yourself or mess around with your own project. Yeah, that's great
Yeah,
advice.
exactly.
That's cool.
Yes.
Well, sweet, Mez. Is there anything else that I haven't asked, or anything else that you would love to mention? Also, as an aside, if you have
Um,
anything that you want to like plug or anything, any project, totally okay. I would love to help you out in that regard. But if not, also fine.
no, nothing to plug. I think I'm just happy if more people get into Minecraft modding and try to understand a bit what goes on behind the scenes. Try to support people if they have a Patreon or something for mods you really like. Especially some of these big content mods. There's so much work to maintain these, or the big project loaders that people don't think about. These are tough projects. People put a lot of love and attention into making all of this stuff work and work seamlessly. Especially the things you don't think about. Those are the ones that are working best. The ones that aren't crashing, the ones that are easy to ignore. This type of infrastructure, like the Neo4j project, things like that. Like, uh, I think it's good to just keep in mind how much effort goes into this, and there's a lot of passionate people.
I love that.
So
I'd like to second that. Everybody, just make sure you give these people the love they deserve. And this is part of the reason we started the podcast, is to bring on these people, give them a voice, show you guys a little bit about behind the scenes and modding and their journeys and things. So, again, thank you so much, Mezz, for joining us here. Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh, is there anything else? Kind of cut you off at the end there. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention?
no, I think that's good. Thanks for putting this together. I think it's nice to be able to talk about these things and ramble on and on. So, lots of Minecraft history and all kinds of random stuff I'm sure will be lost to time without these conversations. So it's fun to talk about and help people understand a little bit about what goes on by the crazy people behind the scenes who somehow decided they want to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even from this conversation, it just makes me realize how there's so many other people I could talk to too. Like people who are maintaining Forge, Neo4j Fabric, those type of people. Just a lot of those people that are having contributions and things. And yeah, it's a great market history, and I appreciate you being a part of it, and really really appreciate you reaching back out to me. So thank you again.
Yeah, no problem.
So let's take a look here, just as a kind of final note here. We will have our little more personal segment afterwards, of course, for members. So if you want to see that, we're going to be building an arena here, me and Mezz, and doing some PvP. He's totally going to take me down, by the way. But again, if you guys want to see that, make sure you join the channel as a member, and that will be a member-only video. But let's take a look at this structure here. Have you ever built like a structure in a mod at all?
In a mod? What do you
Yeah,
mean?
for like for a mod at all?
Well, usually, like, if I'm working on a mod, I start building like some ridiculous set of machines that are just kind of littered on the floor, like this, where I can do some parkour and be like, okay, I'm looking at the centrifuge. Okay, I'm checking out some bees, and maybe I'll put something up here. It's like, oh, I can't make that jump. But yeah, pretty much every single mod has like one of these jank test worlds with a whole bunch of stuff where I can try to figure out what's going on while jumping around in circles.
Nice.
And I often work with other mods, like trying to help debug and things like that. So
Oh,
I
that's
have all
sweet.
kinds of weird stuff littered around with just junk everywhere.
Nice. That's cool.
I think I'm definitely not the only one. I feel like it's a common thing.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, my mod testing world's it's a mess for sure. So yeah. That's cool. Well, this looks very, very awesome. I love this build. You are very, very good. Holy cow. And just so y'all know, if you missed it, his house did burn down a bit, so that's why he was repairing it a little bit ago. But this looks super
I mean, it's
nice.
yeah, the fire is part of it. I think it's
Yeah.
just you can never have. Well, I wanted to build something symmetrical, but it's a little hard to break out of that. By burning down a quarter of it, I think it really, speaks to the wabi sabi of building in Minecraft.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It adds the character it needs. It's really awesome.
Something like
That's cool.
that.
Well, sweet. And the world download will also be available to members, and also I'll send it to you as well, Mess. But
No, thanks.
yeah. So I mean, let's go ahead and take a look at my flat box here. I got a little sword, a little axe. The reason I've been doing this is because I've been doing pixel art for my assets in my world, or for my item asset, textures and stuff in my world. So I just thought I'd slap that in there. But yeah,
Nice.
the inside, I just thought I'd go really colorful. I just did the rainbow background, and then just carpets with glowstone underneath, and some Mr. Crayfish furniture mods things, and yeah, I just added a little second floor here. My favorite wood is actually dark oak, so
Oh,
that's why I used
nice.
it. Do you have a favorite wood?
Good, good choice. Well, because of forestry, I really like the different wood colors. Like they have a lot of different trees and barks and things. I
Oh, nice.
think my favorite from that one is probably mahogany.
Mahogany.
Hmm.
Dang, that's sweet.
Yeah, I'm glad
Wow.
Minecraft added more wood colors though. That's something that was really missing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There's not too many, so. But awesome. Thank you again, Mez, for joining us. It was a blast. Really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience and your journey with us. But yeah, any last words?
No, thanks. Hope more people get into modding and get to understand what this is all about. Thanks for having me on here, and yeah, let me know if you need some suggestions for more people to come on too.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Really appreciate that. All right. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one.